I had a pretty good start in life. My parents loved me unconditionally, and I never lacked for any kind of attention or care. But all that changed when I was just 2 years old. My father was killed in a workplace accident at the textile mill. Suddenly, our family lost its main breadwinner. My mother, heartbroken and devastated, had to take 2 jobs to make ends meet. But less than a year later, she also passed away from a heart attack. People said she died of a broken heart, and I couldn't help but believe that. I was only 3 years old that year. With no relatives who could care for me, I was sent to the Woodmere Children's Home, a place for orphans like me. It was a harrowing experience, lonely and depressing. Woodmere was not equipped to provide proper care for us. About 20 of us orphans, including me, had to attend the nearby public school, and I, the youngest, had nobody to turn to. I soon realized that I was an outsider, different. The kids at school didn't want anything to do with a poor orphan like me. Everything I wore was hand-me-downs, things that nobody else wanted to touch. I had nothing to be proud of, and that just made me an easy target for bullies. They didn't miss any opportunity to ridicule me, beat me up, and make me feel worthless. But I wasn't one to back down easily. Life in the orphanage taught me to stand up for myself. Punches and injuries became commonplace. If anyone dared to touch me, I would fight back with everything I had. Eventually, I learned to ignore the name-calling and taunting, and I became more withdrawn. Few people wanted to play with me, but everyone knew my name and respected my fists. One afternoon, near the end of 6th grade, I saw a familiar scene on my way home from school. A young girl, younger than me, was being bullied by 2 notorious bullies. They were throwing her books on the ground, harassing her and groping her. Another boy tried to help but got knocked down, lying on the ground, bleeding from his mouth and crying. Normally, I would have just walked away, as she wasn't from the orphanage. But something compelled me to intervene. "What's going on?" I asked assertively. "We were just having some fun. None of your business, so just move along," said one of the bullies. I knew both of them, having fought both of them before, but never together. But I couldn't walk away. Seeing the younger boy knocked out on the ground made me angry. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size? You cowards, now you're bullying little kids and girls?" I taunted. "There's 2 of us. What do you think you can do?" the bullies asked, fists clenched menacingly. Without another word, I charged at the 2 kids, swinging my fists with all my might. I had never fought 2 people at once, not knowing if I could beat them both, but I would never let them know that. A crowd quickly gathered, cheering the fight on. My wild swings landed on the throat of one of the bullies, causing him to fall to the ground. The odds had been evened, and I quickly took down the other bully. Both of them quickly got up and ran away from the potential for a follow-up confrontation. I picked up the girl's satchel and gave it to her. She thanked me and then helped the boy to his feet. They brushed themselves off, thanked me again, and walked away. The boy couldn't take his eyes off of me. He had never witnessed an act of selfless heroism like this, and it left a lasting impression on him. I knew I was born on the wrong side of the tracks, growing up in the poor part of town. Hardship, struggle, and fight were all I ever knew. 3/4 of the town was made up of mill village row houses and scattered trailer parks, just enough to meet essential needs and provide a few meager luxuries. North of town was where the mill owners, shopkeepers, and the wealthy lived. Their names were always lauded in the local newspapers for being generous philanthropists that ran cause but rarely achieved anything truly worthy. I struggled with my schoolwork and exams, just barely getting by. But in the 8th grade, I was in Mrs. Crenshaw's class, an older woman who taught math. One day, she asked me to stay after class, making me think I was in serious trouble. After class, I returned as requested. "Thank you for coming to see me, Jade. If you missed the bus, I promise I will take you home." "Have a seat," she said. "Yes, ma'am. Did I get in trouble? Did I do something wrong?" I timidly asked. "Not at all, young man. I don't think you remember me, do you?" she asked. "Not before coming to this school, ma'am. Have we met before?" I asked. She beamed and said, "I used to hold you on my lap until your mother passed away." "You knew my mother?" I asked in amazement and excitement. "I knew both your parents, my dear. My husband and I lived in the house next door. We were good friends. You were such a sweet, precious little boy. I always enjoyed spending time with your family before the tragedy," she said painfully. "Oh, I have never met anyone who knew my real parents before. What were they like?" I asked excitedly. Bernard and Alice Phillips, your mom and dad, they loved you so much. There were no parents more devoted to their child than you. You were their whole world, she said, and then went on to detail my dad's workplace accident that had taken his life, and my mom's struggles to provide for me during those desperate times. Having talked to some of my dad's close friends who had worked with him at the mill, I learned that my dad was the victim of company negligence and my family had never been compensated. My mother knew nothing about litigation and also didn't have the financial resources to pursue compensation, so she tried to make up for it by taking on an additional job. So the stress and loss quickly took its toll on my mom, and many believe she died of a broken heart. That is how I ended up in the orphanage. She tried to care for me herself, but the state wouldn't allow it without familial ties. I felt an instant connection with this kind teacher. She had given me more information about my past in this one encounter than I had accumulated in my entire life. She continued, Jade, I realize you have struggled with your schoolwork sometimes. I was so disappointed when I was not allowed to take you in when you were an orphan, but perhaps now I can make up for that. If you can come here every afternoon after school, I will work with you individually to help you catch up in all your classes. What do you think? Yes, ma'am, I exclaimed. I come here every day just to hear more stories about my mom and dad anyway, even if you don't help me. She chuckled at my enthusiasm and took it upon herself to help me get the education I deserved. She hoped to improve my life for the better. She knew a good education never hurt anyone. She worked with me every day, teaching me the basics, and then building from there. I was smart, I just needed someone who cared enough to invest the time in me. She swore that I would improve my self-esteem as I started to earn good grades and receive praise. So by the end of that school year, I encountered another young woman in distress. It was Heather Jessup, a girl I knew well, as we had several classes together. She was being harassed and assaulted by two wealthy boys, Theo and Alden, the Cohn brothers. Their family was the wealthiest family in the county. Heather was one of the most attractive girls in school. Her long blonde hair drew considerable attention to her beautiful face. She was also born and raised in the poor part of town, like me, and I didn't want to let these pompous, wealthy boys get their way with her. I forcefully pulled their hands away from her arms, breaking their grasp on their prey, and stepped between them. Hey Heather, were these gentlemen bothering you? I carefully chose my words because I knew these two were well connected and could cause chaos if they wanted to. Not wanting to provoke Theo and Alden, she said nothing, but nodded to me, confirming my suspicions. Get back to where you belong, you loser, Theo asserted. That's right, we were here first, Alden echoed. She's ours. You don't have any right to interfere. We were just trying to get her attention, now go away. It seems to me that your attention is not wanted at this time, gentlemen. I will be escorting Heather to her next class, unless one of you would like to stop me, I said, clenching my fists. My reputation preceded me, and few people dared to cross me, because I was like a pit bull, not giving up or backing down from a confrontation. Let's go, Alden, Theo ordered. We have more important things to do than mess with that trailer trash. Remember me, Jade, Theo continued. I will never forget this. You will regret sticking your nose where it didn't belong one day, and I will be the one who takes care of it, he threatened. I just chuckled and replied, I'll be waiting. Nobody had ever stood up for Heather like I had just done, especially to the richest kids in school. So I had captured a big piece of her heart that day, and she grabbed my hand as I escorted her to her next class. The trailer park where she lived was within biking distance from the orphanage, and I often biked my old bicycle to visit her on weekends after doing my chores. By the time we entered high school, I had become well known on the football field. I was strong, fast on the gridiron, and made more catches than anyone else in the county, unbeatable in wrestling. My athletic prowess garnered attention from the girls. Several flirted to get my attention, but they couldn't break the bond I had with Heather. We had become inseparable since the middle school incident. She was a little bit of a tomboy, which was fine with me. If you saw one, you always saw the other. Even though her family didn't have money for fancy, expensive clothes, what she had was clean and presentable. She knew I didn't care about those things, but wished she could experience the good life to show off to me instead of constantly struggling with everything. I even helped her get better grades by sharing tips and study tactics I learned from Miss Crenshaw. Henderson's was a very popular sports bar that was a haven for both the poor and wealthy. It was a great place to get a soda and escape the poverty we all had to face. Heather and I spent many of our free afternoons and evenings there. The wealthy kids hung out there for two reasons. The place had a dance floor adjacent to the jukebox and had live bands on the weekends. The other attraction was trying to pick up the poor girls, giving them a night of excitement, using them, and then discarding them. Early in the school year, when we were all seniors, Theo and Alden Cohn came over to the table at Henderson's where Heather and I were sitting. Acting as if they were gifts from God for girls, the duo started trying to chat Heather up, particularly because she was a cheerleader and one of the prettiest girls in school, hoping to separate her from me for the night. I confidently kept silent as they tried to cozy up to Heather. Theo started sweet-talking. "Hey Heather, how's the prettiest girl in the county tonight? You know, I think you got robbed when Iris was picked to be cheerleading captain. She must be sleeping with the coach. I mean, she's really pretty and all, but you're way nicer than she is." "It should have been you," he said, playing on her jealousy and rivalry with Iris. Of course, that struck a nerve with Heather just as Theo knew it would, but she was not going to let those two fool her. "Thanks for saying that, Theo, but that was so long ago. Iris and I get along just fine now," she lied. Iris was her enemy, but she just wanted those two to leave. Heather was holding my hand on the table the entire time. Thinking he had a chance, Theo explained, "There's a charity event at the country club tonight. Nothing official, just a casual get-together. I was hoping you would leave here with me right now and let me take you to the party. I can promise you it will be a blast. I'll even buy you a new dress for the occasion. It will give you a chance to mingle with the people you deserve to be around instead of being held back by this loser. What do you say?" "Thanks, Theo," Heather began, "but I have heard about some of your other dates. You're very kind to offer, but Jade and I came together and I promise I will be leaving with him. I am sure you will find someone else worthy of your time and attention." "I am already spoken for," she smoothly explained. Even though she didn't want anything to do with the Cohn brothers, she knew better than to try to insult or embarrass them. After all, their family was very influential. The Cohn family owned the textile mill where both her mom and dad were, but she hadn't forgotten how they had tried to assault her in the 8th grade. "I hate to see you miss out on a chance to shine tonight, beautiful. This could be a positive turning point in your life. We would look so great together and I will treat you like a queen. Hanging out with this loser isn't doing anything for your image. Who knows what kind of whore is spreading her legs for the bum who fathered him? Are you sure you want to pass up an amazing night in town with me and the finer things in life?" Theo agreed, with his eager brother standing beside him. Heather could feel the tension in my hands as he insulted my parents, but she just replied with a reassuring squeeze of my hand, confirming that these guys were nothing to her. "Why don't you ask Iris? It would be better to be seen with the cheerleading captain on your arm than the second-string girl," Heather suggested. "Fine. Have it your way," Theo angrily spat. "It's your loss. I was trying to be nice, but I see you have no taste. Come on, Alden, let's get out of this dump. Something smells like a sewer from the poorhouse in here." Theo's disdain for me was plainly evident, and with that, the pretentious duo walked out of the establishment. Months passed, and as the school year drew to a close, prom night was fast approaching, a big event for all the seniors. Of course, Heather and I were the talk of the town because of our powerhouse couple status. Everyone was whispering that we were almost a sure thing to win prom king and queen when it came time for voting. I had done a lot of yard work and landscaping for the wealthier families and had accumulated enough money to put on a great and successful prom event. Heather was going to turn 18 the week before prom, and she promised me she would save her virginity for prom night to make it more special for the both of us. I had been a perfect gentleman to this point, but usually left our prom dates with a blue ball with a promise of the upcoming prom night. I was ready in every way. Prom was scheduled for next Saturday night. On Thursday night, Heather called me at the orphanage. She was crying and said, "Jade, honey, I have some really bad news. Thea's girlfriend, who is also his prom date, Julia, came down with mono and she's not going to be able to go." "So what? What does that have to do with anything?" I asked. "So that's the worst part. Theo came to our trailer tonight and officially asked me to go to prom with him, right in front of my parents. He admitted it was last minute, but I was the only girl he wanted to go with." "Of course you turned him down, and easily, right? You have a date with me," I urged. I tried to say no, but my parents wouldn't allow it. They told me he was a good kid but had no future and wouldn't amount to anything, and they would be very disappointed in me if I didn't take this opportunity to better myself by being with someone who had prospects. They reminded me that Theo's parents own the mill where both of them work, and where I am planning on getting a job when I graduate. They threatened to ground me if I turned him down. I didn't have much of a choice. "I am so sorry, Jade, I really am," she said in tears. So you're going to ditch me at the last minute for money? I'm just a loser. Not going anywhere. I get it. At least now I know how your parents feel about me. Don't say that, Jade. You are not a loser, and neither my parents or anyone else will ever convince me to think otherwise. I hate that I have to break our prom date. I do not want to go with Theo, but I don't see that I have any other choice. I am sorry that you won't be going to prom now. Please don't let this be the end of us, she begged. There is no us, Heather. If there was, you would go to prom with me, and who says I can't go to prom without you? Now that I know where I stand with you, I will have to consider my other options. Goodbye, Heather, and he angrily hung up the phone. I walked out of the building and sat down, leaning against a tree, and cried. I didn't want anyone to see me cry, but there was no other way for me to express the immense loss and gaping hole I felt in my chest. Just like that, and for no good reason, my soulmate had been ripped from me, and it hurt. It hurt like hell. Money certainly had its privileges. On Friday during the school day, I avoided every place where I might encounter Heather or Theo. I was afraid of what I might say or do if I saw them and lost control. Then I saw Iris sad and alone at her locker, getting ready for her next class, and I approached her. Need someone to carry your books or something? I asked the beautiful girl. No, I'm just not excited about a couple of things, she said dejectedly. Like what? Oh, like how my next class is history, and I would rather have my teeth pulled than take that class, she offered. I chuckled. Hey, I agree with you on that one. I hate history too. You're preaching to the choir. What else? Iris looked around to make sure nobody else was close enough to eavesdrop on what she was saying. I caught Asher cheating on me with Arlene recently, so he's history, and I'm stuck between boyfriends right now. The problem is, I want to go to prom, but I'm not going to go with that jerk. Let him take Arlene the slut. That was my mom's idea, but she suggested I take my cousin to prom. He and I get along great, and he's my age and all, and he goes to a different high school. But I'm sure I would never think I would go with my cousin. It sucks. I could hardly believe my ears and felt a glimmer of hope flare up in my dark space. Your cousin, I see. Hey, what if I told you there was a good chance you could go to prom with a great guy and a well-known athlete from this school, instead of your cousin? I eagerly advanced. You're kidding me. You don't think I have thought about that? All the good boys are already taken. The only guys left who don't have girlfriends are either nerds or clumsy. At least my cousin is good-looking and would make Asher insanely jealous, Iris offered. I said he was a great guy, not a nerd or someone with 2 left feet. He is a very well-known athlete and he really wants to take you to prom. So, who is this big mysterious man in school who wants to date me? She asked. Baby. Iris, can you do me a huge favor and allow me the honor of escorting you to prom on Saturday night? You? But what about Heather? Did you find out she cheated on you too? No, but she's about to. The rich guy, Theo Cohn, asked her out last night because Julia came down with Mono. Believe it or not, Heather agreed, so she's going with him instead of me. I got flushed down the toilet like a piece of crap, I said dejectedly. Damn, that sucks. I don't think my cousin was expecting to go with me anyway. If you are serious, then okay, I will gladly go to prom with you. Like you know, Heather and I aren't exactly BFFs. I am sure she didn't like my being cheerleading captain. You are a much better choice than Theo, even on his best day. I would love nothing more than to show you off on my arm so that she has a real reason to be jealous. This will be good, she happily agreed. Speaking of which, I interjected. You can say all the trash you want to her, but with me, I won't say a word to either of them because I am afraid of losing control and ruining everyone's evening. As long as you agree to completely ignore them both, we can have a good time. Deal, she said enthusiastically. Things are looking up for me now. Thanks for asking me, Jade. You won't regret it, I promise, and then she kissed me lightly on the lips and ran to class. I showed up at Iris's house promptly at 6:30 p.m. I was welcomed in and presented her with the necessary corsage. We took all the obligatory pictures before we could escape. We better hurry, I suggested. We have a reservation at Ches Roberts at 7. Oh, I've never been to that fancy place, Iris announced. I am impressed already. I'm the one who's most impressed. You look stunning in that dress, Iris. I'm the luckiest guy at prom tonight. You are so sweet to say that, Jade. My aunt made this dress for me, and I wore it as a bridesmaid in her wedding. I only wore it once and saved it for prom. It's not the dress that makes you look beautiful, Iris. It's the other way around. She leaned down and kissed my cheek. Where did you get this car? It looks expensive. I could never afford something like this myself, I admitted. My 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Crenshaw, and I are still good friends. This black Mercedes is hers, and she let me borrow it for the evening. It's not a new model, but she keeps it looking and running like new. I am lucky to have her as a friend, and you as my date tonight. Now just remember before we get there, I don't want to hear a word from you about either of those backstabbers. Okay? Got it, she said with a twinkle in her eye. We mingled around after grabbing our seats at a friendly table. We tried to dance multiple times to keep a distance from the backstabbers. But Heather spotted me with her nemesis, and she seemed incredibly angry. Iris had a crush on me for a long time but could never act because of my devotion to Heather. I had never looked at another girl, and Iris realized it was a long shot, but hoped to prevent our reconciliation. She wanted to keep me all to herself and was only too happy to respect my wishes and avoid my enemies. Heather didn't feel the same way and ultimately surprised Iris when she approached her from behind, while Iris and I were enjoying the dance floor. As I recognized Theo and Heather, I leaned down and whispered to Iris that I would get our drinks filled and meet her back at their table. Iris grabbed me and pulled me into a passionate kiss right in front of Heather, especially for her benefit, and whispered back, "Okay, don't worry, I'll handle this." "What's going on, Iris? I didn't expect to see you here, especially with Jade here." "What? You're not satisfied just being cheerleading captain, now you have to steal my man too?" Heather fumed. "Steal. He told me that you crapped on him and flushed him down the toilet. You dumped him, girl, so he's a free agent. And for your information, he asked Emmy to prom. I don't know you two broke up." Iris spat. "We are not broken up. It was a one-time thing and Theo was a great date and a perfect gentleman tonight. Jade and I will be back together tomorrow. You can bet on that," Heather argued. Theo sheepishly dragged his feet at that comment. "I can assure you 100% that Jade will be in my arms tomorrow, not yours," Iris emphasized. Heather ignored her provocative comment. "You guys came straight here from home? We had dinner at Henderson's earlier and didn't see you there." "Not enough money to go out for dinner beforehand. That's one of the perks of being with Theo." "Henderson's. Theo took you to a sports bar for dinner. That's odd. The reason you didn't see us there is because Jade made reservations for us at Ches Roberts. They have amazing French food, and it was absolutely lovely. Neither of us had ever been there before, and it was a memorable experience. I hope you enjoyed your hot dog at Henderson's," Iris said sarcastically. Heather just glared at Theo angrily. She knew the reason they went to Henderson's was only in hopes of seeing me there, so they could gloat and rub it in my face. "I see," Heather fumed. "So he brought you here by bicycle?" "Theo brought me here in a very stylish red Cadillac convertible," Heather bragged. "A Cadillac? I guess that's okay if you like basic American cars. Jade brought me here in a sleek, black Mercedes with every imaginable feature. Those Germans sure know how to make some amazing cars," Iris dreamily said. "You're lying," Heather shouted. "I don't believe you." "I don't care what you believe, you bitch. You can see us leaving it if you want, but it's pathetic, isn't it? Trust me, he's mine now and I'm keeping him. Thanks for dumping him." With that, Iris abruptly turned and walked back towards their table to rejoin me. She could hear Heather crying as she left. She felt a bit of an electric shock for defending their honor as a couple. In the middle of the dance, there was an intermission where the prom king and queen would be announced. Everyone who wanted to vote had unanimously agreed I had been chosen as prom king and Heather as queen. Many of the attendees didn't know about our current situation, or they may have voted for Iris. I was on stage with my crown and scepter while Heather was happily being crowned for the night. Theo and Iris were watching from the dance floor, both wondering what would transpire. The announcer asked for silence as he announced that the king and queen would have the next dance alone, under the spotlight in front of their subjects. Heather looked longingly at me, causing Theo to get upset, because she was his date for the night, but he was powerless to stop a long-held tradition. I didn't even look at her, but instead stepped up to the microphone and said, "I'm sorry, I don't dance with backstabbing whores. Iris, let's get out of here. I'm done." He dropped his crown and scepter into the closest guy's hands and said, "Here, take it. Dance with her, she's certainly not my queen." Heather could be heard sobbing from the stage even without a microphone. Everyone in the building was stunned as I took Iris's hand and made a dramatic exit from the prom. The next 2 weeks were hell for Heather. She could handle the humiliation I had heaped upon her that night on the prom stage. What she couldn't handle was being apart from the love of her life. But I was extremely adept at avoiding her. She hadn't heard a peep from me since the prom, and she wasn't expecting me to call her. Damage control would require her to reach out to me, and she knew that the longer she waited, the harder it would be to mend the rift and win me back. The orphanage was a safe haven for me, so her best chance would be during school hours. Iris reminded her frequently how much she loved dating me. Theo had gone back to dating Julia once her mono had cleared. His only interest in Heather, besides being one of the prettiest girls in school, was to humiliate me and demand a little revenge. But that was a hollow victory. He had no chance to publicly embarrass me in front of others, but he had a plan. Iris had been throwing herself at me as much as she could, but I wasn't as invested in our relationship a ship as she was. She gave me her body whenever I wanted, but I just didn't feel the romantic connection with her that I had with Heather. I even felt a twinge of guilt sometimes, realizing that I was using her to hurt Heather and make her jealous, and I didn't want to disrespect Iris. Iris knew she was a rebound girl, but hoped that our relationship could be good despite the traumatic circumstances that had brought it about. She catered to me every chance she got, but I remained a perfect gentleman and never took advantage of her personal treasure. It was the last day of school, and Heather knew she had to do something or never. She had called in every favor she could from friends and fellow cheerleaders who were girlfriends of many of the big guys on the football team. As I was exiting the cafeteria after finishing lunch, I was grabbed by 10 guys and quickly dragged out of sight of the others. "What the hell?" I shouted at my football teammates who had fought alongside me on the field. "We're sorry, Jade," one of them said. "Our girlfriends threatened to break up with us if we didn't do this." "Do what?" I asked. The guys interlocked their arms to form a tight circle around their prey. It was clear I was not going anywhere for the time being, and most of these guys were my close friends, so I knew they had no ill intentions, and I didn't want to hurt any of them in a fight. This devious plan was quickly exposed when Heather slipped through an opening that was made available between the two biggest guys, who promptly locked arms again as soon as she was in the confined space. "Oh, it's you," I said nonchalantly. "Now I see. What do you want, Heather?" "You have been avoiding me like the plague since prom, and I just want a chance to explain. If you will listen to what I have to say this time, then you can be free to go, and I won't bother you again if that's what you want," she said intently. "Okay, you pulled a lot of strings to set this up, so get it over with. All my friends are listening here. What's so important that you have to say, Heather, after you betrayed me?" I spat. Heather girded her loins to accept the daunting challenge facing her. She had prepared a perfect speech, but when she was face to face with the love of her life, her courage melted, and the words disappeared from her mind, so she just spoke. "Thea was, is, and will never be anything to me. Everyone knows that the only reason he asked me to prom was to get back at you. He hates you for some reason, maybe jealous of you being a well-liked and respected guy. Like I said, my parents were the ones who pushed me to go with him. They were so excited that I had the opportunity to see how life was on the other side to change. They threatened me in no uncertain terms and explained how disappointed they would be with me if I refused this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Not only that, but they said they would ground me for months and wouldn't allow me to see or talk to you ever again. That killed me. I could not afford to leave home, but just thinking about not seeing you or talking to you would have made me die. Okay, now that you have experienced the good life, you can move on without me. Money isn't everything, you know. I may be well-liked and respected, but I will never be rich. So you better hang on to that money train while you can," I said heatedly. "So that's all, Jade, the good life. It was the worst night of my whole life in every conceivable way, Jade. Theo's a scumbag, a rotten, no-good bastard who has a vendetta against you, and that is all that transpired. I made him take me home as soon as he dumped me on stage for the humiliation. I couldn't face everyone there after what you said to everyone. I love you, Jade. I love you dearly. I have always loved you and I will always love you. I'm knowing what I know now. I wish I had told my parents to go fuck themselves and kick me out on the streets instead of going through what happened. I just have one question for you, Jade, and I want you to seriously think about it before you answer. Are you going to let Theo win? Are you going to give him the power to single-handedly destroy the great relationship we had? That's what he wants, you know." Her tears streamed down her face as she sobbed out the final words. My heart broke again seeing her in such pain and agony. I suddenly realized that I was not the only victim here. I was confused. I never thought that I had given Theo free rent in my mind and allowed him to manipulate them like a puppeteer. I need time to think. Give me a couple of days and I will give you an answer, but I can't say right now, I suggested. That's all I asked, Jade, and it's more than I deserve. Thank you so much for helping. Let him go. Each guy patted me on the back in sympathy for my predicament and apologized meekly before I left. So that night I wanted to avoid everyone I knew, so I didn't go to Henderson's, but instead went to Connie's Bar and Grill, which was in the roughest part of town. I knew that nobody would bother me there and I could be alone with my thoughts. I ordered a beer from Connie, the woman behind the bar, and sat in a corner away from the other patrons. I recognized a few faces from school, but none of them were my friends, which I was grateful for. About 20 minutes after sitting down, I saw a friendly couple walk through the door. They wrapped their arms around each other and kissed. It was clear Asher had persuaded Iris to forgive him and take him back because she seemed very fond of her former boyfriend. I finished my beer and walked over to their table and dropped a $20 bill in front of a shocked Iris. "Oh, Jade," Iris exclaimed. "I didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing here instead of being at Henderson's?" she timidly asked. "I came here to get away from everyone I know, to think a little and make some decisions. I'm glad to see you two having such a good time." "Thanks, Iris, for saving me from an awkward conversation," I said dejectedly. "Jade, that's not." I quickly cut her off. "Please buy me a couple of beers as a parting gift. Goodbye, Iris." With that, I walked out of her life. I never called her again. I was becoming proud of myself. Having been raised in the orphanage, I didn't want to take money from anyone. I wanted to make my own way. Graduation day finally arrived. With Mrs. Crenshaw's constant guidance, I graduated with a 3.9 GPA. I saw her beaming in the crowd as I walked across the stage. Even though my grades were good enough to get me into college, I instinctively knew that college wasn't in my future. Even if I earned a full scholarship, there were still other expenses associated with 4 years of college that I knew I would never be able to afford. Mrs. Crenshaw insisted on taking me out to dinner after I graduated. She drove us to a nice family restaurant and we ordered our meals. "I can't tell you how proud I am of you, Jade. You've risen to the top of your class as a scholar," she praised. "I owe you everything, ma'am. I'm not sure I would have been out of jail if it wasn't for you. Any obligation you felt you had to my parents and me, you have more than repaid. I will forever be indebted to you," I said humbly. "Gertrude, please call me Gertrude. You are a man now and have graduated from high school, so we are friends now." "Thank you for saying that, Jade, but the truth is completely the opposite. You have given me a new life and a purpose to fulfill that I was lacking before you came along. I have lived vicariously through all your successes as they were my own. I've never had a son, but if I did, I would want him to be just like you. You have a bright future ahead of you, and there's one more thing I want to give you, but first I have to ask you a question." "Anything." Gertrude, as I stumbled over her name. "I will answer anything you ask honestly," I said beforehand. "Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? Well, honestly, they would kick me out of the orphanage any day now. They offered me a position with the state as one of the wardens there, not a lot of pay, but free room and board. I politely declined. As much as I appreciate being raised there, I want to move on to a new chapter in my life and do something different. So I figured I would take a job at a textile mill. I know you said you didn't want that for me, but honestly, I didn't see any other options," I speculated. "That's exactly what I wanted to tell you, Jade. There's a man, Jason Rawlings. He runs a trucking company here in town. You may have heard of the company Accurate Deliveries. They deliver to all sorts of businesses, besides being a courier service and even a moving company when people relocate from one place to another. They are pretty much the only company in town when it comes to delivering to stores and other concerns. Jason is a friend of mine, like you, and he is always looking for good quality people. I have talked to him about you, and he is very eager to meet you. I think the interview is just a formality because I'm sure he will offer you a job." "That's awesome. I've seen their delivery trucks all over town. But why do you think he would hire me right out of high school with no experience?" "Because he's my friend and he respects my referral. He was also one of my students many years ago, and I'm as proud of him as I am of you." "I don't know what to say, Gertrude. You're the kindest person I know, and I try to be half as honorable and kind as you are. This opportunity sounds perfect for me. no matter how much they pay. That's the good part, Jade. He pays better than the textile mill by 30% because all deliveries have to be made on time and in perfect condition. So you would obviously start at the bottom, but I'm sure you will quickly become his right-hand man because of your honesty and work ethic. I'll call him first thing tomorrow morning. This means I won't have to work at the same mill that killed my father. I'm sure both my mom and dad are looking down from heaven right now, grateful for everything you've done for me. I promise you I won't let you down. I'm going to give it my all with Jason. Jason hired me on the spot. Gertrude Crenshaw's referral was all it took. Jason put me to work and trained me personally. He saw that I was smart and hard-working. Not once did he catch me slacking off. "Hello, Heather." She couldn't believe her ears. It was Saturday night and I was calling her. She had almost given up hope. But was he calling to end things forever? Or to begin their relationship again? "Hello, Jade, you don't know how amazing it is to hear from you. How have you been?" "Yeah, that's what I called about. I was fortunate enough to get a job at Accurate Deliveries recently. Jason Rawlings, my boss, has given me some leads on where to look for a place to live. The orphanage might need my bed for another charge, so I need to go out on my own now. I have 5 addresses for rental apartments around town, and I was wondering if you might want to come along with me tomorrow to give your opinion, that is, if you are not busy." "I'm free, but it doesn't matter if I have other plans. I'll cancel them in a heartbeat to have a chance to be with you. What time?" "I will pick you up at 8 a.m., and we will go get some breakfast. However, it might take a while to tour all the places I need to see during the day." "I don't care if it's all day or all night. I'll be there. Thank you for calling me Jade. It means so much to me. I love you," she added. "See you tomorrow, bye," and I ended the call. And so our courtship began again. I had considered her words and agreed with her that it wasn't right to give up and let Theo win. Things started slowly at first, but eventually Heather weaseled her way back into my heart completely. Our first time together was magical for both of us. Everything was right with the world, and for the first time in my life, I was truly happy in every way. I had great friends, an amazing job that I loved, a wonderful, affordable apartment, and a great girlfriend. I just needed one more thing to make my life perfect. True to my word to Gertrude, I worked hard for Jason, not only to honor her faith in me, but because Jason was the best boss you could ever imagine. In a short 3 months, I was promoted from a simple delivery driver to a loader, then a driver, and then the most requested delivery person. Jason had never seen an employee so eager and dedicated. He rewarded my efforts, predicting that I would become Jason's right-hand man and the highest-paid employee besides himself. With my promotion and raise, I felt it was time to take action. On a warm September Saturday night, as the sun was setting during our visit to the botanical garden, I got down on one knee and proposed. As she uttered the perfect words of love, Heather screamed yes to the heavens, and I slipped a gorgeous ring onto her accepting finger. We discussed our possible wedding date, and Heather begged for a June wedding, citing the months needed to make all the necessary arrangements and for her parents to save money for the ceremony, to which I happily agreed. Everyone was congratulating the happy couple and looked forward to the joyous occasion. Wisely, I steered clear of planning as much as possible. Heather was constantly surrounded by a gaggle of hens contributing their ideas and suggestions to make this special day extra special for the soon-to-be-married couple. So her parents, even though they had accepted me, still wouldn't allow her to move in with me until after the wedding ceremony. There were many occasions when she was unavailable for dates, even as my fiancé, supposedly due to what dining planning shenanigans. I didn't want to be around her parents anyway, and didn't want to be hanging around at their trailer just to be with her if she couldn't go out with me. About 3 months later, in mid-December, I received a mysterious text from an unknown source. There was no associated phone number, and the source ID was untraceable. The cryptic message said, "Come to Dighton Financial Office at exactly 8 p.m. this Friday at 1207 Holt Ave. Door will be unlocked. Come alone. I don't tell your fiancé, just slip quietly down the hallway to the office at the back. This is something you definitely do not want to miss." I quickly texted back asking who this was and what they wanted me to see, but didn't receive a response. At first I was ready to dismiss it as a prank, but then realized the local context. I remembered seeing that office building when I was making deliveries in the past. Not knowing what to do, I met up with 3 of my football buddies and asked what they thought. "It's too early for a bachelor party, and Friday is the day after tomorrow, so you have to decide pretty soon," Devin suggested. "Why don't you go? The three of us will hang out outside and wait while you go check it out. If you don't come out or call us within 10 minutes, we'll barge in and take down whoever is there. We'll have your back, buddy." "That sounds like a good plan to me. I'll meet you guys there at 7:55 p.m. Thanks for worrying about me." Devin replied, "You'd do the same for us, no problem." After work on Friday, I called Heather and was about to cancel our regular date, but before I could mention it, she canceled and said it was a wedding planning night for another hen. She apologized and swore she would make it up to me. This time, I didn't complain, as it perfectly suited my plans for the evening. Devin and two of my other buddies were waiting when I arrived at the office building. Devin started, "Since we got here early, we talked a little. How about when you go in, instead of all three of us waiting out here in the car, I will be outside the door listening for you to yell. If I hear you, I will immediately jump in and the other two will be close behind." "Sounds logical to me," I agreed. "I hope it's just a prank or something, but I'll never know unless I go in." 10 minutes. Remember 10 minutes before you rush in." "Got it, boss. Now keep my recorder in mind. 10 minutes unless I hear you yell. Then all bets are off," Devin explained. "Thanks again, guys. Let me see what this is all about." I entered the office building at exactly 8 p.m. Suspiciously, I began recording on my phone and slipped it into my shirt pocket, just in case I was accused of breaking and entering. The front of the building was pitch black, only lit by emergency lights. I quickly found the hallway to the back offices as instructed. At the end of the hallway on the left, a single office door was open, with office lights shining brightly into the opening. I quietly walked down the hall, stepping back trying to peek inside the room without being detected. What I saw shocked me. The bastard Theo Cohn was standing naked beside a desk looking down in front of him. Iris was naked, kneeling in front of him with her mouth in service. Confused, I wondered why Theo wanted me to see this. Then I noticed Asher, Iris's reconciled boyfriend, sitting in a chair against the wall near the entrance, with his pants and underwear down to his ankles, slowly stroking himself as he watched his girlfriend satisfy Theo. Theo was constantly scanning the doorway and barely noticed a figure in the hallway. He knew it was me, so he made his next move. "Okay, girl, get that tongue deep in my ass. Moan for me, honey." I could clearly hear a distinct feminine moan coming from behind Theo. "Come here," Theo commanded. The woman pulled Theo's butt cheeks wider apart and shook her head from side to side as she complied with his desires. After 30 seconds of enthusiastic action, Theo barked another command. "Okay, girls, switch places and keep me entertained." That's when I confirmed the second woman's identity. It was Heather. Damn, damn, damn. I screamed silently in my head as I crossed the threshold. As Heather stood to switch places with Iris as instructed, she suddenly saw her fiancé standing there, jaw agape, witnessing what she was doing. Twist. The soon-to-be wife was. The shocking conclusion will be revealed in the next installment. Don't miss out. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss the next exciting chapter.